Okay, first we have public comments. This is a chance for anyone who's present who would like to come forward and speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please make sure you introduce who you are, your address, and ward. If you know it, that would be great. Mr. Lynn.
Good evening. Dave Lynn, 1108 Suffolk Drive, Ward 1. However, I'm here tonight to speak about my business, Bite Me Barbecue, and the safety concerns I have with the storm sewer situation in that area. As you know, the other night we had about 2 inches of rain again, and it washed my rock that I put on the corner there this last year away for the 4th time, and that's becoming a very costly situation, doing what I can to help beautify things in our community. And it's because the storm sewer is flooding over the top of the curb, as you probably all know. I talked to Cindy about it today. I called down here, like I have for a couple years, probably at least, and I was told that we're waiting on Rob Peschel. I called Rob Peschel, and he said that in February, early March, he sent you, Todd, the engineering proposal to proceed, and then since he's copied you too, Josh. So I don't think the responsibility's on Rob. I think you have the information to proceed. It's just that for some reason we're not proceeding. I just can't stress enough, by the time that I've been down there and the videos that I've sent to Cindy and to Austin St. John for 2 or 3 years at least, I think I even sent some to you, Lori, it's a safety concern. Something bad is going to happen. I don't know when. I'm not an engineer and I can't tell, how that all works, but it's a serious problem, and I just don't see it being addressed like I feel it really should be addressed. I don't know what the issues are for not proceeding. It doesn't really matter because, again, people's lives and safety are not worth whatever this delay is, in my opinion. You all probably have your own opinions, and I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm not going to keep spending money trying to chase my tail, yet I'm trying to do the right thing, but I'm not getting any support on your end. So can you all help me understand, or maybe the city understand, what the holdup is for proceeding with that project?
I was going to say, I was planning on bringing this up later tonight. We did discuss briefly at a previous meeting, so we can just as well discuss it now. I think the holdup has been in part a mechanism of funding for it, in that we've been trying to institute a stormwater utility, and we've been waiting on all the pieces to put that together. But as I think it was the last meeting, since we brought it up, that process has been a little more cumbersome and taken longer than we would have expected. Part of that is a transition in city administrator. Part of that is just the nature of trying to get all of our ducks in a row. But I do agree, I don't think we can probably wait for that utility to be set up to tackle this problem. We just need to find a way to fund the repairs that are required, because I agree, I've driven through there. I made a point during, not this last rain, but the previous. It's a lot of water coming across the road there. I mean, not sweep your car off the road, but if you're not paying attention and you're going fast, hydroplaning would not be difficult. It's inches of water, not,
It's very deep. In fact, if you go look a half a block south of Broadway in the alley on the west side of the street, that's where my pile of rocks are.
Yeah.
That's a lot of water.
And I've had discussions with that resident as well, because until this part's fixed, it's going to flow on the surface. We need to get it underground and into the stormwater system. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the drawings that we got last time were preliminary and didn't give us actual final figures. They gave us ranges, but not final figures.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a final figure. I think all we have is the estimates, and then we can go out to bids from there.
I know when we talked about it, those were the figures, but we had to approve to send it off for bids and stuff.
From my understanding, you have the proposal to proceed to get the figures, but you're not proceeding. That's my understanding. Until you sign the proposal with CES or another engineer, if you desire, That is my understanding where the hangup is. I could be wrong, but I'm just going by what Rob has communicated with me.
It's also between 600,000 to 1.5 million to fix it, and that's a lot of the hangup with that much money.
I understand, Colleen,
Yeah.
but if your family member, your loved ones were driving through there and got killed,
And
now
we-
is it worth it or not? I mean, I'm just saying, you have to find the money. This can't wait. It's been going on for years.
But we just found out, one of the major reasons is it collapsed underneath the highway. When they cambered that, we found that out. We didn't know that before. They were digging behind your building because that's where they thought the holdup was. And then they found out, was it Jadwin that cambered that? And they cambered it and found out it was collapsed underneath the
Okay.
highway.
We're
So we
playing,
just,
we're playing a little game here. It's been a problem for several years. Now
but we just found
it's collapsed. I
that what
understand.
the problem actually was.
Sure. Well, the problem was water wasn't going through it. So obviously there was a problem.
Yes, and that's
So-
why we were looking more.
I just don't want it to be a situation like a rental house I had at 407 North 15th, two-story greenhouse. You've talked about it before, Lori, where there was a water leak in the alley for 6 years. I called down, I sent Austin and Cindy emails of that water leak. That was the city's water, not mine, but it put a swamp around my house for 6 years, you know, causing the basement to come in. And that's the reason that house hasn't been worked on for so long, is because until last year when it got fixed, I'm not gonna put money in something that's gonna fall down. So I put a new roof on it last month, I can proceed now, but not to get off topic, but I don't want this to be a situation like that, because, you know, my grass gets too high, I get a letter in 10 days, I gotta get it done. It's done usually within 24 hours. Let's don't put people's health and livelihood in danger, because you can borrow money, I would assume. I mean, there's ways to get money. I have to find ways to get money when I need to get things done. So I will help however I can, but I just want to stress the importance and urgency of how dangerous it is.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. Cindy's currently making copies. We do have the agreement letter for us to look at from CES, so we can hopefully take some action here later this evening. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to.
Well, I'll be back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, is anybody else that's not on the agenda would like to come forward and speak? Okay, Jessica, would you like to come forward?
My name is Jessica Leese. I live at 202 South Oak in Home, which is Franklin Township. No longer a resident of Marysville, but until 4 years ago I was. And obviously, I do a lot of business here. I support a lot of business here, and I'm still an active volunteer here. So the question I have for you guys tonight is, did any of you come to the meeting when you were driving forward and have eyes in the back of your head, or continue to look over your shoulder as you were driving forward? The answer is probably not, because it's not safe. That's not what we do. On Tuesday, May 28th, I was driving my brother to look at homes. He just relocated here from Indianapolis. He had been in the state for 16 hours. We got to the Catholic intersection up at Catholic Hill. We yielded. We were almost through the intersection, and I was T-boned in the back end and spun from going south all the way back north, because the person came up the hill, did not yield, and admitted that they gunned it to get up the hill, and by the time that they had got to the top, that's when they seen me, and it was too late.
Which hill is this?
That Catholic Hill, right there by the Catholic church. It would be 13th and Carolina.
13.
Mhm.
Thank you. From the west, yeah.
So being here my whole life, I know that there's unmarked intersections, right, and you do have to yield, but I also know, living here my whole life, that that is a very dangerous intersection, because I know many people that the same thing has happened. And it became a reality for me, I guess, because I got spun around and was shifted in the intersection. There's a little kid's playground right there, and had that been a school day with little kids outside, I don't even want to know. So all I'm asking is that you don't go and mark every intersection in town. I think that would be a waste of taxpayers' money. But I did talk to Matt Simpson. He indicated that almost 60% of the intersections in Marysville are unmarked. I would ask that you do some research on where are your hot spot intersections that are common for these types of occurrences, and maybe you at least mark those intersections to make the town a little bit safer, and maybe stop it. And my suggestion on Catholic Hill specifically would be that that is a one-way. You can go down the hill, but you cannot come up the hill, because you can't see if you're coming up. You just can't. Somebody told me, oh, well, if there's stop signs. Well, stop signs wouldn't have done any good, because I would have stopped at the intersection, no one was there, I proceeded, and I still got it in the back end. So if you ask me, the right choice is just to have it be a one-way, to go down the hill where you can see all of those sides. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Has the police and fire committee met yet?
No, we're still waiting on this.
Okay, I guess that's something, if you wanted to discuss with chief, that might be something to add to that agenda.
Yeah. I would think
Is some of
that'd
these
be a pretty good
intersections,
idea.
and there's probably a couple others that,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with her. I take that on my commute home when I turn there, and there's been a couple times I've almost been popped there from somebody coming from the west heading east. It is
And you can't see because cars are parked there in front of the house.
yeah, it's a
You gotta
bit of
pull
a
out.
tricky sight line as far as being able to see not only up, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to,
Do we need to tell Cindy to add that to the agenda on,
Yes.
police and fire, if we could? Okay.
yeah,
You would like
I didn't
the-
know if you heard that.
the intersect, well, barely.
Yeah, if we can add it for the agenda on the police and fire committee, meaning the intersection.
The intersections.
intersections that might need more signage
Okay.
or changes?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with business and discussion items. First up, we have the Pony Express re-ride alley closure request. There's a map in here, but Ben, would you like to speak to that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Ben Throm. I live at 61 Oak Street, Ward 3. I am here tonight on behalf of the Pony Express Board. Our annual rewrite is coming up next Tuesday, June 18th, so a week from tomorrow. And this year, it is leaving from St. Joe and heading out west. With that, it generally arrives between 8 and 9 in the morning. So we're going to do our bi-yearly breakfast, where we're going to have sausage, biscuits, and gravy. And with that, we're going to have a lot of people there milling. And we wanted to close the western half of the alley between Broadway and I think that's Jackson Street. No.
And you said you got,
Elm, sorry, yep, Elm, and just the half there behind, right behind the museum. It will not affect any of the post office operations, and I've talked to Karis and Patrick Booty and Community Memorial Medical Equipment about it, and they didn't have any issue with it. If we need to move the barricades to allow them to park, we're okay with that. We just don't want traffic going through there for safety reasons. We're planning on pulling out the big stagecoach, some of our other equipment, just to have a family environment.
I'll
Yep.
move to approve the request to close.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
sounds like that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
7-0.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Ben.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have discussion about the Black Squirrel Bark Park request from the May 13th meeting. There's a letter in the, it's just a repeat from,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's-
but this is, yeah. So I guess you, city administrator, Beaver Campus put out some information as well to the council. Is there anything you'd like to add as far as some of the concerns that have arisen in regards to trees or shelters?
No, but I did have Dom, our Parks and Cemetery Supervisor, come. That way you can ask him any questions and he can tell you how, you know, it affects his daily work there.
Tom, would you mind coming forward?
Sure. You need my address and all that too?
No. We know where you live.
All right. Really, personally, I don't have any problems with a shelter or two shelters. Josh, Cindy, and I had a ride-along with two of the guys from the Corps. When was that, a month or two ago? Maybe. Anyway.
Close to 2 right now.
Yeah.
I've brought it up to them. Since I've been supervisor for 3 years, I've brought it up to the previous inspector, and then these two guys we rode along with, and I think I had one more. So I've been through 4 of them already. They didn't seem to have too many issues with what was there. They did recommend that we don't put any more stuff in there. Where the dog park is a holding pond for the levee, and the issue they have is with the holding capacity. Now, Will and I went down there and we measured the berm, so where the bridge comes over and you walk down, you know, ballpark, because it kind of sways a little bit. We'd say an average about 6 foot high, going to the east towards the highway, and then probably similar when you go around to the west and then back to the south. Anyway, so I don't think that the shelters necessarily are going to take up obviously that much. I think it's 40 acre feet. I don't really know what an acre foot is, how many yards that is of water. But anyway, you know, I don't know if another tree would be the best thing to have. The main thing I have a problem with is the asphalt millings. If you wanted to walk around the edge, because we got plenty of those already, and it just ends up getting full of weeds, which isn't a huge deal. You know, I go and spray the weeds, but you know, if the guys get too close with the mower, they'll hit them with the blades, but they'll throw some of the stuff out in there. I mean, we found chunks out in the grass, and that's probably from, you know, I don't know if people get down there and throw stuff out. I don't know. I mean, I hear it from the guys. When I go to spray it, I just notice, I just sprayed it today, and that the picnic table in the middle of the big one, it's probably got, I don't know, 6 foot of asphalt millings around it. And I mean, there's weeds clear up to from the grass up to the concrete. So that's really the only issue that I have personally with it. Now, that being said, like I told you, I've already seen 4 different inspectors from the Corps. They don't seem to have too many problems with what we got there, but that doesn't mean we're not going to have one in the future who's, you know, extremely strict, or, you know, I can't predict the future, obviously. But that's just something to think about going forward. I've been down there when we first put the some of the dog like obstacles in there, and Austin and Marine and I went down, and I didn't really have a problem with that stuff either. What I do is spray around it, because to be honest with you guys, I don't have time to go down there and weed eat around the whole fence and everything else down there. And that is what I would continue to do around any new things. The main thing I tried to stress at that particular walkthrough is that it doesn't turn into a circus. So, I'm trying to think if I left anything out. Do you guys have any other questions or comments or?
So your biggest concern is the asphalt millings?
The millings,
as far as
yeah.
you'd prefer
around the edge. I think it was something maybe like around the edge of the, I don't know if it was the whole dog park or the big dog park.
Walking trail, like a walking path. So would
Right.
like a decomposed granite or screenings, kind of like what the rail trail uses, be preferred?
Could they put down like a weed barrier before they put that stuff down to help with that?
You could, but, I mean, from my experience, it's still gonna end up getting weeds in it. Now, I already spray underneath the fence, you know, and so, the main thing, I don't know if it's just gonna be, if my guys get too close to it, you know, I can probably spray 6 inches on the outside of it, you know, and I don't know if that would wash stuff away, you know, it's usually wet down there, obviously, but
What about putting like, you know, that, like for one of my gardens, I put that green barrier around and it holds like rocks and stuff in. Is something like that would help with that? Or
on the edge, like an edging.
like an edging, yeah.
Yeah, I put some of that at the PD just recently, in front of one of their windows. It'd be quite a bit. I mean, you're talking,
Yeah.
for a 10-foot stick, I got it for $20 or
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
not-
So-
I didn't know if there was any other option.
But that's that metal edging, you know, I know they make other stuff, you know.
But you'd like to explore options besides asphalt millings?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm not, but I don't mind, if it was me, I don't mind walking in the grass or, that's just me. I mean, I don't know how complicated we need to make it. That's just my opinion.
It serves the purpose the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't seem to have, I guess, a great answer for what to put if you wanted to walk around the outside of the outside edge of the inside of the dog park. I don't know how you say that, but, you know, I'm sure concrete would be way too pricey too, but, so. If you guys got options, you know, I'm open to listening to other ideas. I don't think asphalt's probably the best thing to have down there, the millings, just from past experience, that's all. So,
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
you bet.
Thanks, Don.
I'm gonna stick around for the railroad stuff, I'm kinda curious on that.
So I don't know if, I mean, are we at the point where we need to grant official permission for the
what the
shelters
minutes said
to
before,
be
if you
put
were
in
gonna do
place?
everything they put in
Trees,
now has to be
otherwise, the trail,
single
where, how does the council want to proceed? I mean, we can break these out into individual items if you like some of them more than others, or if you want to discuss them. But I think we need to give the Bark Park Committee some direction to move forward.
So, you looked at the shelters that they had purchased
Yes.
and explained those.
So the shelters, I believe the height to the roof, like the bottom of the roof, was 6.7 feet, so that's about 6 foot 8 inches. If the berm's 6 foot or average, then that should be above, so it shouldn't be displacing as much water. Yeah, as it would if it was under the berm. So those shouldn't affect as much, in my opinion, as a tree would, especially an adult tree. But yeah, it's up to you guys.
Were they putting concrete underneath the shelters too?
They were gonna extend the concrete where the bench was at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so does the other dog park already have concrete and a bench?
I do not believe it has
Okay.
either of those.
Question, if we have a different inspector comes in and said we gotta take it all out.
I don't think that's, I don't think
Jeff, I'm just asking
I
a
don't think that's
question.
gonna be an issue.
I would say, I don't think it will because they do not inspect that part of it.
Yeah.
You guys are in control of what happens there. Everything will have to go through you guys to get accepted to be put in there. And then if something happens and it floods over, then it would go back to that decision. But if you feel like it's not likely to happen, you know, it is a 100-year chance. So, yeah, it's ultimately up to you guys.
I'm Maureen Christ, I'm with the Dog Park Committee. I just wanted to clarify that
There is currently concrete on the large dog side that would have to be extended a little bit to match that shelter. There is no concrete for a shelter on the small dog side, so that would have to be added. And then when it came to the trees, we have one tree that is dead that we were asking to be replaced there. And one that's dead by the parking lot.
I'm sorry, Maureen.
Yeah.
If you do replace the dead one in the big dog park,
Yes.
I might find it, it's kind of in a low spot, so I think
Okay,
it might have got too much water.
okay.
It's just for clarity.
So I would just want to make sure that all the things that we requested at the last meeting were covered.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
So it sounds like
pulled it
they're
up.
not adding trees, they're just replacing trees that are already there.
I pulled this up from the last request. We would like to request permission to replace 2 shelters on concrete pads, replace our 2 dead trees, one inside the fence and one at the parking area. Install 3 dog waste stations, one with trash can to be placed beside current waste station, and build a trail inside the large dog fence with millings so that pet owners can exercise while their dogs run and play. That's what they requested.
The tree at the top would be near the parking area, and we would just need to make sure that it's not in the way of any of the electric lines.
Basically a
Yeah.
street tree.
It's fine where it is now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Well,
so,
I know that the millings were an issue, so maybe we separate that out, and if we wanna like approve everything out, like the shelters and replacing the trees, and then
Just,
maybe,
make the motion to do everything but the millings.
yeah,
Yeah.
We wanna do that.
yeah, that sounds like a thing you can do.
I move to approve the request, excluding the millings to find a more suitable option to help our parks guys.
second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to approve the projects in the Bark Park. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
6-1.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess have conversations with Dom and other city staff about the trail project as far as the millings, not millings, and we can find a better solution for that, then please bring it back.
I think they're working on it already.
Yeah.
Looks like it's being solved. Okay. Next up, we have the steam engine 460 and UP caboose 25398 request from the Kansas Steam Heritage Association.
Okay, so, on Wednesday, we received a request, we received a phone call from the Kansas Steam Heritage Association. It is a new group that's dedicated to preserving and restoring historical railway equipment in Kansas, specifically the steam engines. And they were going through town and noticed that we had a steam engine in our park that needed some repair, and requested that we sell it to them, and they will take care of all the costs and be able to move it to the proposed Ottawa in order to fix it up and house it in their museum, wherever that might be. They also asked about the caboose that's over along 7th Street corridor, and that's also ours, and they asked for it to be included in this as well. Later that day, we received another request after finding out about this request by the UP Depot Preservation Society, so that's the next request on your agenda.
And then you said sell, or, I thought it said donated.
Sell for one, or, yeah, donate, basically, yeah.
Just they'll get it out of here and they'll move
The
it.
first subject is the,
Is the locomotive that's in City Park.
And they also want the caboose.
Yes.
Yes.
but we had a second request on the caboose.
On the caboose,
Yes.
that's correct.
So these are, yes, 2 parallel but intersecting requests. The history on the caboose, for those who don't know, is that it used to sit on the west side of the tracks in the 7th Street corridor between Broadway and Center for many years. And then when all that project happened 20 years ago now, it was moved over here and sits on a city lot west of the historic depot across where the tracks were, across the old yard. And as far as I know, there's been not much discussion around it or about it since it sat there. And I don't know if anyone's gone down and looked at our steam locomotive in the park lately. It's it needs some love.
It has,
It
for a
looks-
long time,
It
it
looks
has
like it
needed
needs a
love.
really good sandblasting, but I'm afraid you might punch some holes in things with the sandblaster if you're not careful. It needs some work. That being said, I'm not saying that's for or against this proposal, but it would be nice for us to do something to beautify it, improve it, preserve it. But I guess we can kind of talk about both of these proposals in one breath. What are the council's thoughts?
So in regards to the steam engine, is that deal contingent upon them getting the caboose as
No.
well? Because I would.
doubt it.
No.
I mean,
It's not.
okay, because I would like
No.
to, if our local chapter wants to keep it local, I think that's, they have first right of refusal on that, in my opinion.
I would agree.
So I would assume
They're also
that
here.
if they are willing to take this,
We did offer the engine to them earlier, and they were not at all interested.
understood. And that was gonna be my next question.
We did offer that to them when the Convention and Tourism Committee kind of wanted to, or, well, way back when we wanted to build more tennis courts.
Right.
Yes,
And,
yeah, yeah,
and
correct.
they were not
I
interested.
recall that.
I'm curious what the community would think about the staple of the city kind of disappearing and going away forever. That's my concern. I know, I wasn't born and raised here, but I've been here long enough that thing's always been there. And I would be interested to see what the community would say about that steam engine just disappearing and go. I mean, I know it needs to be taken care of, and it's
Yeah.
obviously not getting the care that it needs.
Back in the
How- how-
70s, a group, and I was part of the group, repainted the steam engine. But that was when you could actually climb on it too. After that, they enclosed it so you couldn't climb on it. And nobody's done anything with it since then.
Right.
So,
It was rolled there on tracks laid down.
If I'm not
Walnut
mistaken,
Street.
wasn't there some talk about moving it a while back?
Yeah,
And that's
It was like
what-
this exhort, like 40,000.
no, over 100,000.
400,000.
Over
So
100,000.
we probably
It was
could never
6
afford to
digits,
fix
if I
it.
remember.
Yeah. And if I remember right, when I read the proposal from them, they will lay tracks to move it?
They're gonna cover all the costs.
Right.
to move
It would be
and-
a very involved
And they said
project.
that they would have, if they got both, or if they got the one, they would be moved by December 2025, is what they would hope.
They would probably pull it off of the trucks, I would imagine, try to move it, separate the tender from the locomotive itself. I'm a little bit familiar with the organization. I think they're probably trying to do something akin to what, I don't know if you're familiar with the Abilene and Smoky Valley Railway down in Abilene. They basically bought a park locomotive and put it back into service. I think
Yeah.
it was like a $6 million project.
Wow.
That is what.
An intensely expensive project. There are not a lot of towns, small towns especially, that still have a locomotive in place. There used to be more park locomotives than there are, so it is a little special, and that's kind of my personal inclination. It's nice to see it here, to have it here, since the railroad's obviously a huge part of the community.
Do we have any representation?
I was gonna say, so,
Yeah,
the
how does
second,
that, yeah.
do we have anybody here from the Kansas Steam Heritage Association? I don't think we do. But we do have the UP Depot Preservation Society here. If any representatives of that organization would like to come forward about your proposal on the caboose.
Just not me, but all of us. We come in force. I'm Anita Welch. I'm a proud taxpayer at 1101 Ann Street. Thank you very much. I guess my first question to the council is, how many of you have taken a historic tour of the depot in the last 6 months? Okay, a couple. Okay, how many of you get our Train Tales newsletter every month and read it? One person. Okay, that gives me just a little bit idea of your knowledge about what's going on at the depot. I would very much encourage you to do both of those things. I will make sure that I email all of you with our information, and then you can send me a note back so I can get a newsletter to you. By the way, it's only $25 a year. We want, but we'd love to have all of you be able to keep track of what's going on at the depot. We have I think, and of course am prejudiced about it, but I think we have probably the most active board and the most active preservation project going at the depot. When Mike Welch started to work with us in 2020, every February we have a strategic planning meeting. As most of you know, Mike has a master's in strategic planning. It's been great that he has encouraged us to plan like we do every year. We write a strategic plan, we write timelines, everybody has a job description, and we've now increased our board to 20 people. And so we are really getting things done at the depot. If you have not seen it, and you saw it in the beginning, it's just really remarkable, and everybody that sees us tells us that. Okay, one of the things, in 2021, we were having a strategic planning meeting at the library, and Jason Barnes came to visit us and asked us if we would be interested in the steam engine. Though emotionally we would have loved to have it, we just couldn't figure out how we could make it. And we even had a 92-year-old woman from Arizona whose father actually drove the depot to its location, offered to pay $100,000 to have it moved. But we couldn't figure out if we got it, how we could afford to bring it up to snuff. We don't want something at the depot that is not interaction or interactive type of equipment. And so we chose at that time to say thank you, but no thank you. However, at that time, we did tell Jason Barnes that we were interested in the caboose. Not too long after that, Fran and Ron Grauer and Mike and I borrowed the keys, and we took a tour inside of the caboose just to see what kind of shape it was in. And, you know, Shirley was a great home for birds for a while. It is workable. And in fact, there were 2 windows broken out, and Mr. Grauer and Mr. T. Meyer went down and they fixed those windows so it wouldn't further deteriorate. But it is a very workable situation for us. We definitely are interested in having it. I don't really think, with everything we have going on right now, that we can probably get it moved by 2006, or by December 2005. But, you know, just like you have sparklers that work on the Pony Monument, and I work at the depot, or I work at the courthouse, the sparklers are available in town to volunteer to work on that caboose, even though it's still located on your property. We would just be volunteers. Then, you know, as we have a fundraiser where we can move that, and I've been watching all kinds of YouTube videos about how you move those things, and I think that we can get it moved because it's not that far. And I think with the wonderful donations that Inland has given us, the donation that Landals have given us as far as of help and equipment, and the fact that we know railroaders, like this guy right here who used to lay track, that we could get it moved by sometime during 2006. So I'd like to encourage you to allow us to keep the caboose so that we can make it a part of our display at the depot. Our plan is to put it at the north end of the depot and to put the nose and the tail going east and west. So when you're sitting at the depot in the lawn, which we want to keep open for events and tents, that when you look down that lawn, you see that Union Pacific caboose there. And I think that it's a project that we can make happen. And I think it's something that would just add so much to the existing historic depot, which is, you know, there's only 3 like ours, even close to ours in Kansas, and that's Topeka, Abilene, and Marysville that are Gilbert Stanley Underwood depots. So let's just make that and encourage another great tourist attraction. Anybody else want to say something?
Mr. Mayor, Charles Wakert, you and I are members of the Central Branch Railroad, Blue Rapids to Waterville, the Marshall County Railroad Preservation Society. We have a member, Joe Brown in Wichita, who has said that Marysville steam engine is of the era and should be sitting on Central Branch Railroad tracks in either Blue Rapids or Waterville. We have no way of being able to come up with the funds, and I have never heard of this Kansas Steam Association. I, in the interest of railroad history, want to get with them. They're going to take it to Ottawa. Can they take it to Blue Rapids or Waterville? There used to be a steam engine in Ottawa when I lived there, and it sat right alongside the depot. Pretty good attraction. About the time I left Ottawa in 1974, that steam engine disappeared, and so I think citizens of Ottawa are trying to reinvigorate their Chamber of Commerce or whatever for an attraction. Marysville, Waterville, Blue Rapids, Marshall County has a need for keeping a steam engine of the era in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty much everything's been said. I appreciate your thought on keeping it local. That's important to me as well as others in the community, as it should be. Being an ex-railroader, you know, we are a big railroad town, the changing point between North Platte and Kansas City. It's going to affect a lot of people. I don't know how Ottawa is for being a railroad town, but you all know people that work on the railroad, and that's been there for a long time. If you don't take it apart when you pick it up, it's going to fall in pieces. I just know it. But I would suggest you leave it where it is. That's my thought.
I guess we're not all in agreement. I didn't know that.
Okay.
But anyway, my father was on the railroad for years, and Ron was a railroader, and there is so much here and so much history. But that engine truly, I think, has seen its day where it is on that corner. It's really an eyesore. It's a disgrace, I think. And, you know, it would be different if, you know, we could fix it up or, you know, make it back to what it was in its heyday. But I can't see that. And when we hear you talking about streets and the money that takes, how I just can't see pouring the money into that where it sits now. And someone had said something about the tennis courts wanting to expand over in that area. So I would much rather see that there. But I am so for the caboose. Really, I think we could do something really, really neat with that. And that would keep the railroad, you know, going. I mean, in Marysville, it would keep that in the forefront. So that's just my idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Anita,
Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when the caboose is moved and in place, are you going to leave it open for people to go in?
Yes, our whole idea, well, we have a couple things up our sleeve, but obviously one of them is, you know, we have two great groups of school kids that come to the depot. We have second graders, who are my favorite, and then we have seventh graders, who sometimes are my favorite. It just depends how much eye rolling we get. But obviously, that would be something that we would want to work with. The other thing we kind of talked about is from a income standpoint for the depot, we might be interested in making it an Airbnb. And we've been looking around at that a little bit. You know, as we go forward, we were so happy with 144 donors from the pony up. And we every year, we have a great response on Pony Up, but we have a great response every month. Every time I send out a newsletter, we get money, which is why we continue to send out the newsletter like we do. But eventually, and as we go forward, events will help sustain the depot. But if we could do a little Airbnb with that caboose, that could be just something that would really be unique in Marysville. But, you know, we all have dreams, right?
Have you ever slept in one?
Yeah, well, we would make it wonderfully to sleep in. Don't worry.
Correct me if I'm-
It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be like it was when the railroaders were sleeping in it, okay?
Correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it kicked around as well that maybe like making it a dining cart or for events?
Well, what we talk
'Cause
about
I
it.
feel like that was an idea at one point. I
Yeah,
can't remember.
well, one of the things that we thought maybe later on, since we couldn't use a caboose, is
Yeah.
maybe we could actually get a dining car
That's okay.
and put it at the north end of the depot. Wherever we put anything, it has to be at the very end so that we can, preserve the lawn. But you know, the other thought that somebody had once was to maybe make it like a food truck. You know, where we could lift the side up and, you know, serve refreshments and things. I mean, there's all kinds of wonderful things we can do with it, but we gotta have it first. Okay? And like I said, my volunteers are willing to work on it, even though we may not own it yet, when it's on your land, just to make sure that we continue to preserve it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. I have a procedural question.
Okay.
Which is, how, if the council was to desire to transfer ownership, is this something we draw up like a MOU? Or, I mean, there's no title for a caboose, I don't think.
I think it's just a consensus that
And then-
when they're ready for it, it's theirs.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to, one, earmark the caboose for the Marysville Union Pacific Depot Preservation Society, so as when they are ready to take it over, whether that be 2025, 26, I think we should earmark that for them and have it remain in our possession and allow them to work on it incrementally as they see fit or are able to provide the volunteers for. And then I'm also inclined to believe that we table this idea for
Well,
a little bit, because
What-
there's mixed reviews, obviously,
Yeah.
on how this should be handled. I don't think there should be a knee-jerk reaction.
This is on the steam
let's-
engine, right?
The steam engine, yes,
So-
but the caboose earmarked for them.
let's tackle one at a time then,
Correct,
if
okay.
that's all right with
Okay,
you.
that's fine. I'm just
Um,
giving my opinion.
And you have, no motion's been made yet, but if they do, the council wishes to give them, you know, earmark it for them and let them work on it in the meantime, I presume they would need to come and fill out the same volunteer paperwork, waivers, anybody who's working on it, just because it's on it's city material, city property, whatever. But what's the council's wishes specific to the caboose?
So why do we have to wait to transfer ownership to them? Why can't we?
Sit on city property.
Okay. I didn't,
We don't want that to change until it's off of the
Okay.
property. It protects us and them and,
Yeah,
I think it belongs with them.
yeah.
I agree.
I would like to see, Mr. Weichert, if the group that you wanted, that wants it, is he still here?
Yes.
To come up with a proposal for us to consider for the steam engine.
On the steam engine side, Charlie, I'd be happy to put you in touch with the folks down in Ottawa.
This is news to me about a company that wants to buy a steam engine and renovate it, because I was a member of the Abilene Smoky Valley Railroad when they restored their engine down there. Restoring a steam engine is only good for 15 years, and it has to be rebuilt again for safety reasons. And so I'm not for sure whether Abilene Smoky Valley steam engine is still runnable or not.
It is. I saw it run several months ago.
Bingo, great. But, folks, Marshall County Railroad Historical Preservation Society and the UP Depot Preservation Society, we've got a lot more need for keeping that engine here. I can agree with Fran, I don't like the location of it, but I can't do anything about it, and I can't speak for the railroad company. I may be vice chairman, but that's another story.
Charlie, is there any talks about funding for getting it repaired if it were to move? Is there any chance of that happening, or?
Our budget is less than $40,000. We couldn't possibly even move the darn thing.
Sure.
And yet, it may need to be moved. I just hate to see it move 165 miles down the road when it could go 10 miles down the road and still be an attraction you and I can enjoy.
Until it falls apart. For lack
We
of.
can let it fall apart out of the city limits of Marysville.
Gotcha.
Okay,
So I would like to make a motion to earmark the caboose for the Union Pacific caboose for the Marysville Union Pacific Depot Preservation Society while leaving it on Marysville city property, have them sign waivers, everything necessary to restore it until they are able to take it over and move it to their project.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to earmark the caboose for the Depot Preservation Organization. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So,
I'd like to table the discussion on the steam engine.
Aye, yep.
okay, would it be okay for the council if I had further conversations with this organization just to get more of an idea of the background and try to get, maybe,
Yes,
it
so-
wouldn't hurt us to have some
Yeah,
data,
so-
whatever they're thinking it costs to restore a locomotive anyway.
Table the discussion until the mayor brings us back information.
So it's,
Is there any way to, maybe they can do an article in the paper or something about this to, maybe have the citizens voice their opinion on what they would like to see happen? I'm really interested. I'm not from
What
here.
they did the last time.
There've been some really pretty good crowdsourcing polls on Facebook and otherwise I've seen
About
lately.
this?
No, about different projects around town that people would like to see. I think you're right. I think this is another one of those, like the Kester Block and otherwise, where there's probably a lot of people who have opinions and thoughts and
We could
ideas.
send the depot back to Beatty,
don't
but they
want
won't take it.
We asked, they don't have any money to move it.
Yeah.
They'd like to have it, but they don't have any money to move it.
I don't know how we would get that done, but I would like to see that done somehow, just to get an idea of what like I said, I'm not from here, and I'd hate to make a decision affecting something that's been here for a long
I just remember growing up, we would go to City Park and we would climb all over it and get inside and, yeah.
I'm from Great Bend, and there was one there as well, and that was the same. I mean, that was my whole life that thing was there. And I know if it disappeared and I got my Dairy Queen ice cream cone and didn't get to go sit and eat it in that train, I'd probably be a little upset. So I'm just a little apprehensive of making a decision without getting some,
Let's table it.
feedback from the community.
I guess we don't need a motion to table it, do we?
No.
We can just table it.
Let's table it.
Okay, take no action. All right, moving on to Resolution 2024-05, streetlights on Hartley Ridge. That was something we had discussed, having installed up there. And Westar, I guess, is saying 3 lights they thought would cover the whole territory for the time being.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-05 with the lights at Hartley Ridge.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, next up, we have the Kester House Restaurant, I should say the Kester Restaurant, we'll call it, RFP draft that City Administrator Haverkamp put together for us. This is kind of our first glance at possibly putting this forward for proposals from developers or people in the community with ideas or plans for the structure and property. It's been vacant for a year and a half nearly now. We still have utilities on. We've kept it in, I'd say, reasonably good repair. It does need a little TLC, but more than anything, it needs somebody in there to basically use the property. And we haven't been able thus far to get any restaurants or otherwise permanently to take it on. So I don't know if you all had a chance to kind of review the RFP. Is there anything you see in there that you think should be changed or added to? If this looks like something you want to move forward on, we can set some timelines, and get it put out for the proposals as laid out in the RFP.
I gotta say, when I read it, I'm not an RFP expert by any means. I've never even seen one until I came on here, but I mean, it's got all the information that I think it needs in it, and it's pictures and everything. So, I mean, everything that I read through seems to me like all the information is there for someone to make a decision on whether they want to move forward with it. So I
know there's interest. I mean, I toured one interested party through it, just kind of nominally. They keep following up with me, so so I'm pretty sure they are interested. This is another one of those items that we obviously want to do in a very deliberative manner, because we want to make sure that any interested party is vetted, that we understand what their plans are, that they understand that there's going to be some historic preservation restrictions on the properties, but ideally they'll want they'll be willing to accept those strings because they'll get a lot of benefit from it that will help them rehab and improve the property as well and benefit the entire block. Anita?
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
If there is interest, Mike and I are actually interested in developing that into a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
Now, if I could turn back 10 years and be 63 instead of 73, I'd be much more anxious to do that. But we have a daughter that's a Le Cordon Bleu chef, and she would love to live in Marysville. Her medical issues are getting to a point where they're more stable, and I think with the medical teams that we have around here now, she could be here. But we definitely have an interest in it, but we didn't kind of know how to proceed because I didn't see anything in the paper that was asking for bids or
We're
any
just
of that.
getting there.
It's getting there, okay.
That is what
Because we just,
approve the RFP.
okay,
before you
but so
can
we
do
it.
just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to at least
no,
talk
yeah.
about it before we got to that point. And, we may be committing suicide, who knows, but we have a very large house in Atlanta that is now worth a lot of money, and, we would have to sell that in order to put the money into this. But it's definitely something that we would at least like to consider and have you all consider. And we certainly have enough experience in that area that we could run it first class, and it would be something that we think Marysville would be proud of.
You'd be welcome.
I mean, that's, at this
We'd
point,
be-
whether you've been inside it.
Yeah, well, you'd be welcome to,
throw
we basically, anybody who wanted to submit a proposal but
Okay.
would like a walkthrough, you'd be definitely invited to
Okay,
submit
we
to
did
the
that
RFP.
Thursday.
So you have been on the walkthrough.
We did it Thursday
Good.
and went, but obviously we'd need to walk through with an architect and,
Oh,
and
sure.
a designer and and an engineer and all those things.
And more
but-
than likely, it would proceed in a similar manner to the other RFP that we're working on, in that
Okay.
we'd want some structure to kind of get an idea what the plans are, proposals, timelines, and then once we've chosen a direction, we develop that, kind of flesh that out. Because again, just like, we don't want to do anything hurriedly, we're not in a hurry,
Well,
but
we
we
are-
do want to see the building put to good use.
Right, we obviously, though, we must have a phone call at least 3 times a week of someone wanting to sell our house in Atlanta, you know? Because we live in a really great neighborhood on a golf course, so everybody wants to buy our house. But, you know, but we're not ready to move in, you know, in 6 weeks either. So, you know, it would take some time and some work on our, some due diligence on our part too. So I just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, in regards to the RFP, is there any comments or?
The date, I did put a
That'll be
tentative
August.
date of August 26th,
Yep.
2024, just so that, you know, we'd be able to get it out there, and they would then have 2 months, you know, that's open to change for, based on what you guys.
When you send out an RFP, if we approve it and it goes forward, can interested parties like ask for an extended time to get proposals and stuff in, or how does that work?
I mean, anybody can ask for anything, but it doesn't mean, you know, they're really gonna get it. I'd say we'd tell them we need your best and fleshed out as possible by this date. Now, if that means they don't have all the pieces put together, but we really like the bones of their proposal, then we could still choose to pursue that option. But that is the day we're going to review it, so I would say.
2 months a pretty standard
Yeah.
time? Okay.
I think anybody who's got some interest and background in developing anything is gonna be able to put together at least a pretty good bones of their proposal in 2 months.
Yeah, so one thing, you guys would have the chance to, in the solicitation for it, at any time, but you could also extend it or reopen it if you don't feel like the proposals are up to your standard.
That's written.
So we would just have to come back.
And key to remember is we're not beholden to anything. Nothing's inked, until it's inked, we've got a free hand to go back to the drawing board.
The reason I asked that question, we're finding out we may have another interested person, so I just wanna make sure
Sure.
we're giving everybody, you know, equal opportunity.
Absolutely, and I mean, we'd publish it.
That's
and
what I was
we
gonna
would-
say.
I mean, and if you know of interested parties, by all means, get in front of them. If we had 10 proposals, that would be great. We definitely want more ideas, more possibilities to weigh. I want it to be a difficult situation because we have so many good options. That's the idea, so.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, thank you.
So,
I make a motion to move to, approve the proposed publication for the RFP.
Second.
it's been moved in second. Is there any further discussion?
Is it for that date then?
That date work okay?
Yep.
Great.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
7-0.
Okay. All right, I see we have no notices and hearings. Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion, anything anyone wants pulled out? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
7-0.
Thank you. Okay, next we have appropriations ordinance 3824.
Move to approve appropriation ordinance 3824 in the amount of $275,773.01.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call?
Snellings,
Yes.
Ferris,
Yes.
Barons,
Yes.
Keating,
Yes.
no Eichmann, Schrader,
Yes.
Crum,
Yes.
Brackey,
Yes.
7-0.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the city administrator report. Josh?
Okay, there's a lot in this report again. We'll just continue on with the RFPs. We met with Tyler Holman and FDG on Thursday, and we had a good first meeting. We went through different options. There was a lease option and sale option just to keep our options open for everybody. With the lease option, he gave us a project cost, and he proposed a 100-year land lease. That's his preferred timeline. And then there would be a one-time funding of $10,000. After that, an annual lease payment of $1,000 a year, potentially. And then we would discuss that as we get going. And every 5 or 10 years, we would be able to get back together with the group to determine the next 5 or 10 years worth of annual lease payments. So it would be a rolling type agreement. In both agreements, he would be given 18 months for pre-development with an option to extend for 12 months, and then a time period of 12 to 18 months for development. That pretty well describes the lease option. For the sale option, he was thinking possibly of the same amount of one-time funding because of the amount of funding that he would be putting in himself on the back end. And then all the deadlines would be the same, the 18-month with the 12-month option to extend if he were to miss the grant time period. And then 12-month development, and then we would have a first right of refusal if they were to try to sell the buildings within the first 10 years. For both options, we would split the cost 50-50 on a survey, so that way we could determine the exact location of the property that he would be getting. And then, yeah, that basically explains what we discussed at that meeting. Do you feel like that I'm missing anything, Jeff?
I don't think so, no.
He did discuss having 6-month meetings throughout this process, so that way he can update the community on what's going on and just be a recurring face and, you know, in front of council, in front of the community.
I think too, he also did mention something about wanting to, if the Kester House Museum Board or group wanted to piggyback on with some CBGD funding, or him helping them with some state SHPO credits and stuff, he'd be willing to do that, because his wife does the grant writing, is what we learned at the meeting.
Yeah, so they were open to applying for CDBG, which is mainly exterior stuff for those buildings, with the museum, and then potentially with whoever the party is that could take over the restaurant.
So they were wanting to piggyback all of them together?
Yes, so that could be roofs, that could be HVAC, stuff like that.
Nice.
And then in that situation, the city would serve as the sponsor. That's normally how the CDBG funds work, and they would just pass through the city to them in that case.
I would say that there was some, we had a very good discussion. There was a very diverse group of people there. The thought process of appraising the property and then putting it on the open market was brought up. And now I'm just speaking from Jeff's opinion, that if we put it on if we appraised it, sold it outright on the open market, how do we guarantee that it's going to be preserved as a historical building? Because Kevin could come in and pay appraised value at $350,000, whatever it is, and then just leaves it the way it is. And I don't think that's what we want as a community. We want to preserve it, maintain it the way it is. We don't want the facade falling off, or which is getting close on part of it. So just from my standpoint, my opinion, the lease option is the best direction to go, because if we want to have a true clawback, it's a lot easier at the lease. If we want to sell it and have a clawback, we're going to be paying the investment that went into the property. I think it's really no different than the kind of the way the Legion's set up, that if the Legion goes defunct,
We just get the property back.
you get the property back, but it's a lease agreement.
Well, actually, it's not a lease.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, the way it works on my farm, the church is on my property, and when the church goes defunct, I get that property back. And that was given that way
Right.
in my,
But-
when I purchased it.
But point being, I think we have more control with the lease option. If we sell it, it's $1 and it's gone, and we have no, to me, we have no way to really control what happens afterwards. So.
If it goes defunct.
Well, so if he goes defunct after 10 years and he invested $2 million with various revenue streams, is the city prepared to spend that kind of money to buy back? I don't think so, so.
So is, if on the lease option, that annual amount that's renegotiable on a rolling 5 to 10 year, is that amount upfront negotiable? I mean, $1,000 isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, it seems awful.
It's almost nominal. I'm saying it's $1. It's more than $1, but in the scheme of overall expenses and, operating costs of the museum, it's not very much.
Well, I still argue that, so who's paying the taxes for the commercial property?
At present,
Yes.
we are
Coming out of which fund?
Esther Block Fund, which comes from the,
Revenue.
so where are we?
The revenue, so we're like, I looked it up, is like $9,800 a year. Okay, and then who's paying the insurance?
We are,
Out of,
the Esther Block Fund.
so
rents.
if we look at that, when we consider that we're getting about $2,000 a month in rent?
It's
A little
similar
more,
to
it's a
that,
little
but-
more than that, but then
But-
we have
but-
expenses against it, like
but not
utilities
much.
everywhere. Yeah, no,
So the offset of the expenses,
yeah, we're not,
and then consider the fact that somebody else is gonna be paying taxes, and then we're gonna get our 36% of that money that they're paying on taxes coming to us? It's, I don't know.
Just for consideration, under either option, we wouldn't close until after the funding was secured and the construction was ready to start. So this is not a 2-month process. This is gonna be more than a year. So that would be continued meetings with them. And all of this stuff that we were discussing, none of it is agreed upon until you guys agree upon it and give us that final okay.
So how does the lease work then? If they terminate their lease, all the buildings and stuff go back to the city as well?
Well, if they go defunct,
Yeah.
that would be part of the agreement.
Yeah, we'd have to, that'd be a clause, we'd have to say.
Yeah.
So,
That'd be in there.
so all that $2 million they invested, how is that different than a sale and you just write that into?
Well, that's why they're not gonna go defunct.
I understand
That's
that,
the
but
point.
I'm just saying,
If
if
you-
it's
if
a
you-
lease is no different than in a
No,
sale.
but if it's a sale, you can put first right of refusal, but we have to pay their investment.
Right.
Or whoever's holding the investment, the bank or whoever. Huh?
you would?
Well,
Why wouldn't you?
We would be buying it back,
Buying
so
it.
Be buying it
whatever
back.
the value.
Buying
is.
it back.
At market.
Okay, I
You
see
got
what
first
you're
right of refusal, but that doesn't mean you get it for what you gave it to them for.
saying. That means you're purchasing it back from
Right.
them.
But
I
if
see.
they
At the
lease
improved
it
cost
and they go to
or
defunct
value.
or
I see
sell
what
it
you're
or whatever.
So if we sold it right away, we
And
would
how is that
value
any different?
I see.
Cause we'd still
I
own
was
it.
just
We-
Mr. Mayor, may I speak?
Let's use.
as a
Yes.
lease option.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I was in attendance of the meeting Thursday afternoon, and I would just like to point out the question. Several of you are raising very important, valid questions, just like Mr. Keating just did. I personally am very much of the opinion that there hasn't been enough time or data collected to make an informed decision yet. So I hope that the council tables this for a little bit until, just like I'm a part of the Kester House Museum Advisory Board. We haven't even had time to meet about this since we got the information. Neither has the foundation board.
So I do hope that you give us a little bit more time. And that I hope that there's an effort to inform all of you on the council, just like Jeff was just asking about how the funding mechanism even works. I'm not sure that everybody actually understands. It is a little bit out of the ordinary how it works, but, you know, when we say that we're paying the, you know, like Cindy phrased it, we're paying those expenses, it's coming from the money that is not taxpayer money, though.
Correct.
And so to just say, well, we're going to give the, a lease, have a lease agreement for $1,000 a year, you're giving up, well, right now, like it's $26,040 for the rent from the 6 properties, and then the apartment, which is actually in that also, is another $6,600. You know, so it's over $32,000 that you're going to give to somebody else for $1,000 a year.
And yet they will maintain it, which we can't.
I agree with that. However, that is.
What's your alternative? How are we going to maintain it and keep it look the way that it is, the way that we want it to look for our community?
I want to make an informed decision, and I don't personally believe that I have enough data yet to even make a comment about that one way or another. I am very concerned about the continued existence of the Kester House Museum. The city also has invested a lot of time and energy, and a lot of people have invested it. And if you take this, there will be zero funding for the museum. Is that what you want? I mean, when you first started this discussion, there was a lot of comments about we want to work with the museum. You know, Mr. Hallman made the comment. He says we want to be a good partner. Well, I asked at the meeting, how is this going to benefit the museum? And I got no reply. I mean, I don't. So I would like for there to be more thought given into this whole process. This is a very important decision. The city's owned that property for 47 years. This isn't a crisis that we have to settle today or even in the next 6 months or year. I mean, please take your time and find out more facts first. That's my request.
I think it's a crisis because the city does not have the funds to maintain it and pay all the expenses.
Well, up until about 2 years ago, it was accomplished. So has there been any effort? Has there been any effort in looking at what would be the impact if you look surprised, Colleen?
I am.
Well, it's been operating for 40, you know, it's been under the direction of the city for 30 years, about 30 years that the museum's actually been operated. And it's managed to work all those years.
I would say, and I agree, it has worked, but I would say the environment has changed, as in the rental environment, the ability for the tenants to absorb the increases that would be required for us to afford the increases in taxes, insurance, security, the things that just weren't where they weren't where they are now a couple years ago. Our expenses are just outstripping our ability to offset them.
I appreciate that. Everybody's been impacted by inflation. Have you actually sat down, though, and did a realistic study of what would the increases need to be?
Yes, we have.
And the tenants.
I haven't seen those
It wasn't
figures.
quite pitchforks and torches, but it was getting that direction when we had those discussions.
Okay.
It would have been significant. I mean, doubling, tripling, quadrupling rental increases.
Okay.
Well, and the progressive side of it is if we could get, Tyler's talking about 10 to 12 apartments. If there's 8 for young professionals that are living outside of our community, commuting here every day, if we could bring them in and have some lights on downtown, I mean, that's what it's if we don't make a decision to go forward and be more progressive and get a name for ourselves, and we just want to keep doing the same thing that we've always done, we're going to get the same results.
I'm just asking that you don't forget about the museum, because this could easily mean the end of the museum.
I think it could relieve some time and stress to really focus on the museum to an extent.
Well, what are you suggesting for funding then?
You
Jeff?
guys raise funds all the time. You raised $26,000 on the Pony Up. That would have paid your expenses for next year.
Well, it wouldn't probably cover the entire year, but.
Yeah, it would have.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it would have or not. So
Yeah.
I haven't seen any figures as far as what you suggested for the increases and stuff. So and I'm pretty involved in this.
Yeah, that was in admin and finance.
Admin
probably
and finance.
Last council, so it was probably 18 months ago, maybe?
Oh, okay.
It's been a little while.
Okay.
It was before this whole process started. That was part of the early stages of the panic building on this side, which was, what are we gonna do? I mean, obviously, we've had to dip into the convention and tourism,
I
because
realize
everyone on council, I think, appreciates that we wanna keep the museum going. It's beautiful. Last Thursday was amazing.
Yes.
All the band and all the people in the block. So obviously, we have that commitment, but of course, that's not a bottomless well, so we've got to be very cognizant of being on the path to solving the long-term problem.
Yes. Again,
And-
I'd just like to say, I'd just like for you to give at least the foundation and the advisory board a little bit more time to at least come up with a list of, I personally have a list of questions and stuff that I'd like, and I intend to ask like the developer and stuff also, so, I don't believe that you're at the point that you would be making an informed decision.
And this isn't something we have to make a decision on tonight, which direction to proceed. I mean, this is a lot of new information for people,
Okay.
but.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So what were the discussions at that meeting? I had a prior engagement, so I wasn't able to make it. Were there?
Well, the
were
discussion is,
about the
so
museum?
we've already accepted a request for proposal, an RFP. We put it out. The public had their opportunity to do, anybody could have come forward. The discussion now is, are we gonna sell it? Or are we gonna enter a lease agreement? That's the crook of it. Would you disagree with me?
No.
Mr. Administrator?
If you do not feel comfortable choosing which one to go right now, at least let's discuss if those terms sounded good and what you would like to change, that type of stuff.
I mean, at this,
That way, when we meet this Thursday, we can at least discuss some new stuff rather than rehashing what we've already talked
And
about.
I get that.
we gotta keep in mind too, that the funding sources he's going after, he needs to get moving on it.
No, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. I just know that the museum is important. I don't want it to be forgotten. That's all I'm saying.
But the museum at one point had said, and Sharon stood up here and said it, that if they were not a part of the city, they might have the opportunity to raise more funds, because people don't want to donate money to the museum when it's owned by the city.
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
Well, and if somebody else is paying the property taxes on it, that's more revenue coming to the city to help with the museum.
And the taxes.
Yeah.
The museum is tax exempt.
Right.
So, I mean, as far as the lease versus sale, I guess I'm at a place where I can make an argument, probably either way. I don't know where the council's comfortability is. I do like the idea of the security blanket that is a lease. I think initially I went into this assuming sale was the no-brainer way to go, and I still think there's some benefits to that. But to Jeff's point, I think, having that lease with that ability to, potentially bring it back in-house if we had to, or if things went south, which I don't think they will, and I obviously hope they won't. I think that's a benefit, but I do think the $1,000 a year is paltry. I mean, even if it can be renegotiated in 5 years, I mean, $1,000 was a lot different 5 years ago than it is now.
Yeah, $1,000 is like $1 today.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago.
But we're not in this to make money.
No, I get that.
No, but
We're in this to let somebody save the buildings.
Yes. No, I not only save, but actually improve. I mean,
Right.
the repairs that are needed right now, we don't have a way to fund.
Jeff, so have you changed your mind? Are you still 100% for the lease option, or have you?
I want to see the buildings look the way that they looked 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. And I want to see lights on downtown in the evening. But I do know that the city, we don't have the funds or the means to do that.
No.
And to me, the lease option is the way to go, because if something happens, it's a lot easier to claw it back than if they own the property. Because somebody could own the property, we could have it appraised, somebody could buy the property and they'd let it sit. let the roof continue to deteriorate over reflections, which it is. It needs a new roof. So that's where I'm at.
So you're still with the lease option?
Yep.
So what specific questions, I mean, obviously there's gonna be another meeting Thursday, is that right?
Yeah.
There's gonna be another meeting Thursday. What specific questions do you have after hearing this? Like to Josh's point, I'd like to go back to Tyler and be like, well, you know, this is something that council was concerned about. Is this negotiable? What's this look like? I mean, I think we have a pretty good feel for what his comfortability is from these numbers, but obviously we're still in that negotiation phase. So, I mean, is it something where we can say, you know, I almost am less worried about the 10,000 up front than I would be more on an annual basis, because that gives us an air predictability.
What do we get off the Legion for their lease?
Nothing,
Nothing. That's
absolutely nothing.
what could we gain by moving forward with this?
A lot.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
Well, I'm just making sure all points are aired here, so.
yeah.
It's smart to discuss everything. Don't
I
leave
will
any
say,
stone
in looking back, I've been through the files a bunch, looking at here, there, and whatever, and we've had money donated to the city to use at the museum, but not anymore. They created the foundation so that the money would go through there. So the city did used to get some money through that, which they did improvements with, but we don't get that anymore. And I think that was kind of the idea. So like you said, I think they would get more money. The city did have to borrow $200,000 in a bond just to make the property usable, because it's in the minute, or in the thing when they sent it in, that it had been let deteriorate from the family, and that in order for us to be able to use the buildings and rent them out. So we did take a $200,000 bond as a city, and to fix the buildings to start with. So, I mean.
Anita, I'm gonna let you speak, but
Okay.
before I do.
Yeah.
We really probably for protocol need to minimize people
Yeah.
coming forward to speak.
Okay.
I'm nothing
I
against
just have
you,
a
I just wanted to make sure I
question.
told you up front, okay?
I just have a question. Is it possible that I've put nonprofits and profits together before, I've merged them before in private clubs?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible for us to ask Tyler to donate, instead of asking for your $1,000, to donate $5,000 a year to the museum? That way, he can write that off as a donation, and the museum can get $5,000 a year to help them operate.
And that gives
Just a thought.
a predictable funding, like,
Yes,
I don't.
but, and he can write it off.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, yeah. I don't know, that can be a question we can definitely ask.
Yeah, let's ask that.
I mean, and that's, to my point, to me, look, it would be nice if we had enough of a residual trickling in income that we could at least be like, well, the staff position is paid, or half the staff position, or whatever, for an ongoing funding mechanism for the museum. I just don't think, I mean, $1,000 is not a month's worth of anything anymore, not even insurance. It's, so,
Yeah, it'd buy their.
I don't know if there's
Well,
another
I guess,
mechanism to do
I guess
that.
the other way to look at it is, if you're gonna invest 700,000 of your own money, and then go after another, 1.4 million on top of that,
I get what you're saying.
and make an improvement to the community,
Yes.
you're not gonna go out and you're not gonna get somebody to go out and, if you sell it, you're gonna get 150,000, 200 maybe. Maybe. And no guarantees on whether it stays the way it is,
Yeah.
like it is now. If you go out and sign a lease with somebody and think that you're gonna get $2,800 a month, it's not gonna happen. That's what we're getting. And now we want them to invest the money in the upper properties? Just saying.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to preserve some sort of mechanism here where we can be supporting the museum in an ongoing way. Obviously, they're concerned about it.
Take the tax return you're gonna get on it, property taxes you're gonna get, and budget it. You can calculate that out.
Well, that's a good question too. I don't know, I mean, I know we're working on next year's budget right now. How difficult is budgeting for the Kester block right now? Have you laid out various paths that, based on how this can go?
It's gonna be one of the last ones we try to do. Yeah, so are there ideas for length of, if we were to go lease?
So he does
Discuss
100
terms after 5 years,
100
I would
years a
assume.
lot. I mean, is the Legion on 100 or is it on a 50?
That's lifetime.
It's, yeah.
Lifetime?
Yeah, there's no I mean, we don't have.
So,
I'll tell you this, Todd, 100 years is pretty standard, I do know that. 100-year lease is standard. The military does 100-year leases on everything, 100 years is pretty standard.
Hardee's was supposedly a 99-year lease.
It was. Yeah, and they yeah, it was.
so is that something you wanna look at, the length of the lease? Do you wanna?
I'm comfortable with the 100-year, I mean, I think the only question I have, I guess I'm with the mayor, is that $1,000 a year. But you know what? In my defense, I'm not a property manager, I'm not a real estate guy, I don't know enough about this to even make informed suggestions on where we should go. I'm gonna have to do my own research on that.
For 2 years, if this is gonna happen, we'll still be paying the taxes and the insurance.
Yeah.
Just
And
remember.
we will,
Coming from somewhere.
until we close, we would still retain the income off the
Yes.
Right,
the
I mean,
rent.
just so we remember that.
Yep.
So you
And-
think
and
it may
did-
take
did
2
we
years
get
to
a
close?
price on how much the survey is gonna be?
It could possibly take 2.5 years, based on the timelines that I propose to give him, so that way it gives him some cushion, and we don't just immediately yank it back, because we don't feel like, even though he hasn't gotten the grant,
So 2.5 years before he has to start?
He would like to start right away. He gave us the timeline of council approving the agreement, in July, and then, approving the RHID and CDBG resolution. Then August to October, they approve the architect and engineering work, and they get the letters of support from us and financing documents, and then get that submitted to the SHPO and the National Park Service. And then that application gets submitted in November. Then we create the RHID district for the Kester block, so that's the rural housing. And then get the project approval also in November. So then by February 2025, that MIH decision would be announced, and if they approved, they would begin work sometime mid-2025.
Mid-2025, okay.
Yeah, so then construction mid-2025 to mid-2026. That's
So 12 to
the
18
shortened
Yeah.
timeframe. But if they miss this round of funding, they would have to wait until next,
A year from now.
next late summer, which, under this agreement, that was what that 12-month extension would do. So that way, we're not just taking away from them just because they missed it that one time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, at this time, would you like me to continue exploring both options?
I personally think that we ought to start negotiations with the city attorney and yourself on a lease option.
I mean, it's council's choice on how to move forward. I personally think, since we're getting a lot of this information now, I'm not super excited to move forward with this decision yet. This is only our first meeting, when we have another one, and even in his timeline, he even said July would be his goal for approval. I do think bringing in the attorney for discussions sooner rather than later is good. We have a staff attorney for a reason.
He was there.
Was he at the meeting? Oh, okay. Well, so I want to make sure he's got, full awareness on this. Maybe if there's any red flags, I know he's got some background specific to real estate. We might as well leverage whatever experience he has and thoughts too. I'd be very curious on that, but.
So we're thinking table this evening? I mean, I'm inclined to, just based on the other groups involved with this, as far as what they're, giving them their due diligence to.
And if they've got questions, prior to the Thursday meeting, can they send them your direction and
that would be
we can get
great.
all those answered hopefully
It's also
by then
encouraging
too.
that his timeline would kind of mesh with that if we give it,
Yeah.
A meeting to think about and.
Yeah, and it gets a chance for all of us to have more conversations
Yeah.
with interested parties, the community, et cetera.
Correct.
There's still, as much as this has been discussed for a while now, there's still a lot of misunderstanding, confusion, plenty of conversation to be had, do our due diligence.
My gut is sell it so that we don't have to mess with it anymore unless they don't. But based on what Jeff has said, if we had to pay total investment cost to buy it back, but he's getting tax credits and grants, so would we have to pay that back to him?
He said that all the liability would go back to him, so.
But first right of refusal, we would still have to pay.
If we were wanting to buy it, yeah.
Buy it back.
Yeah. At that point, it would be listed through a broker, so yeah, it would be most likely the actual value of it.
Value of all of it, Gotcha.
All the improvements, et cetera.
Do we have a cost of what the survey was gonna be, when he said split it 50/50?
I don't, but they're not usually. Yeah. And like I said, he was willing to split it 50/50.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting.
If we wanted to go out and get a valuation of it, which is not normal whenever you do an RFP, usually you either go through a broker or you do the RFP. And through the RFP, you get to choose, obviously, who it is. Broker, you not as much. Yeah, so normally you wouldn't do it, but if we did, he would not be interested in sharing that cost. So.
Yep.
So consensus is to table it for the time being, unless anybody wants to make a motion.
Okay, I will just
Table it till
continue
the
on.
next meeting.
Yeah, and if there's, interested parties have specific questions, let's get those to Josh ASAP.
Like
And
Tuesday. Yeah.
You have a meeting with them on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, continuing on with the Kester block, we received some interest at the tours that we had on Thursday about the apartment, and because of the timeline, if they were interested in doing a short-term lease with the city, I wasn't sure how open the council was to that, since previously, before entering the RFP process, there was no interest in it, so that way it would be left open for the developer. However, now that you know a better idea of the timeline, I wanted to check in one more time before we officially close it out.
How short a term?
So that timeline was mid-2025, so maybe a 10-month lease with 1 month options of renewal or something similar to that. It would be.
If we're on the hook for expenses for a while, I think we need to do everything we can to
Sure.
ameliorate those expenses.
I would, as long as they have the understanding,
Yeah, I mean,
it's gotta be flexible.
And obviously we'll have to do due diligence to make sure,
Yeah.
whatever credit approvals or whatever the process is, we do.
Background check or?
Yeah, I don't know what our process
references?
necessarily is, but.
And where is this apartment at?
The commercial apartment.
It's,
yeah.
east with the bay windows.
It's above the main dish.
Yep, so, is there a listing price or just the same listing price?
What's market rate on a 1-bedroom apartment?
ask,
In today's
the
America?
interim city administrator.
We're at 5 1/4 now.
Seems like good value.
5.5.
Yeah, I'd say go up a little. 5.5 seems,
But that's still cheap.
yeah,
Yeah, it is.
I
Because
mean,
I think it's 7 out at,
Do they pay their own utilities and everything?
yes.
except
They
for,
would,
Oh,
except for water and sewer, right? Don't we-
Nope, they pay it all.
They do that too? I thought maybe that was on us, yeah.
that seems fair.
And I think it's ready to be rented currently.
Turnkey.
Yep.
They didn't look too bad on the tours.
No.
Might as well get some money out of it. Well,
And is it first and last month's
$550.
deposit? Is that what we do?
Usually we decide
Yeah.
for one extra month, but we can do both if you want. We've
I'd say
been-
do first and last.
I was gonna
That's
say, we've
standard
been
now.
dinged a couple times, so first and last.
That's,
Okay.
I think so. That's
Yeah.
pretty standard in the industry.
Yep, standard, okay.
So 550, did that
Yeah,
sound right?
I think
Okay.
550 and plus a deposit of 1,100 then. Okay.
Do we need a motion on that, or do you just?
Yeah, you should, because that's not what we were doing.
This,
please.
okay,
I move to approve the rental of the commercial residential property. Apartment.
Second.
okay. Let's move to second. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so the deposit's 1,100, the rent's 550, and
10
it's
month.
10 month, right? I got all that right? Okay. Just
10
wanna
months
make
on
sure.
a monthly.
And then
And it-
month to
and-
month.
Yeah.
And are we, no pets?
No pets.
Okay.
What about a goldfish?
Take it through council.
Anything that, nothing that looks outside a tank.
Yeah.
Okay, on Thursday is the planning commission. And then, let's see, Dom and the parks team picked up flowers at the cemetery and other items around the headstones, because yesterday was the last day to pick them up before they grabbed them all. They will be at the cemetery shop on a trailer for about a week, so please pick them up, otherwise they will be going to the landfill. Let's see. There was a diesel leak at the Casey's on a filter change, and they lost about 50 to 60 gallons of diesel.
That was at Casey's?
Yeah.
That was the largest that they have ever done there at that location. We went ahead, not much went into the storm drain, so we went ahead and flushed it out just to get it going. Otherwise, the rest of it was cleaned up with the floor dry material that emergency management at the county has. And yeah, and the fire team. The fire team did a great job, police did a great job. Everybody responded really quick and they got it cleaned up fairly quickly. Shouldn't it be an issue moving forward. Chief Simpson has asked for the police and fire committee to look over our quarantine and leash laws again. He feels that they're outdated and just would like the committee's opinion on that, so that way we can look into those.
Leash and quarantine?
For dogs.
Both, yeah, two separate. The quarantine, most cities nowadays are having them quarantine at home rather than the city bearing the expense of putting them in their shelter. So that's one thing that he's looking at. And then the leash laws, I think they have to be within 50 feet and then be able to call them, voice command over them. And so he wanted to look at that to see if it still made sense. Let's see. While going over budget, we're looking over the COLA adjustments. So that's the change of living over the past year. Currently SHRM, which is the HR organization, like a nonprofit organization that helps with local governments. They currently have it at an increase of 4% in between 2023 and 2024. Just wanted to get that in your heads. That way you can think about it over the next 2 weeks before we really get this budget ship going, and that way we can really get into the, all the salaries.
So I wondered, you're going for a inflation, cost of living raise,
Yes.
inflation
Yep.
raise?
When do we make that decision? When does that come up?
July.
In July?
And we'll have a workshop meeting before then?
Yep, we're working on it.
Which reminds me, June 15th is the date that the city receives our revenue neutral rate. So then from there, we can really look at whether or not we're going to be increasing our budget over the revenue neutral rate. And with that, if we do increase it over the revenue neutral rate, that means we have to have a hearing for that and then have a budget hearing after that. And that goes in the August to September timeframe.
So do you still have to send out the letters if you're planning on, going out and not doing the revenue neutral rate?
If the appraised value of anything goes up,
Right.
we're exceeding
If you
the
go
revenue
under,
neutral.
no, you don't have to have
If
that
you,
hearing.
but we couldn't take in any more money than we've taken in this year if we
I
don't.
thought I'd read somewhere where they changed the rules on how you had to,
How you have to represent it when you send it out to the people.
Okay.
So that they have to know they changed that a little bit in this legislature, but we still have to do it. It's just how it's represented on the piece of paper that they
Okay.
get from the county clerk.
Otherwise, just all of our departments are doing a good job doing their job, and yeah, tell them thank you when you see them. They're doing awesome out there, so yeah.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Josh. Standing committee reports. I don't think we had any committee meetings since the last council meeting. Let's see, no appointments or wage determinations. City attorney is not present. He will finally be back with us next meeting. It's been a long absence. Does anybody have any need for executive session tonight? Okay. Move on to council comments. Lori.
I got one note. That's all I got. Okay, our street department guys. I don't know what they were doing on a street. People couldn't get in and out of their driveway. They went to go leave. Street department told them they couldn't drive over it for 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, probably.
Are we knocking on doors
Crack seal.
to make sure that the residents whose driveway were
Normally
impacting?
They put out, those little flyers, but I can check. I don't
Yeah,
know
please
that,
check,
Lori.
because, yeah, that was, I
Okay.
got a message about that.
Okay.
The lady could not leave her house for an hour.
Okay. Some of those streets that they're crack sealing on, you would have thought they tarred the whole thing.
I saw that.
I wouldn't want to drive on it.
I don't know why they crack sealed. They should have just poured new asphalt.
There's a way.
Because you
That's all
don't
I
give us
got.
enough money, that's why.
There's a way
You?
you can add surfactant to those to make them not, you basically just put cheap dish soap in a water jug and spray it over it after, and it helps cool it and provide this slick surface that helps mitigate.
I don't know, I'll find that out.
So do you have some soap and a sprayer? You want to chase the crew?
Well, no, that would take almost nothing if that works,
It does work.
Oh.
to harden it.
It
Do you
just,
know what the process is called?
no, it's just you.
We can just put it in a hand sprayer if that's all it takes.
That's all it takes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We used to do it with a cure sprayer, like you spray Cure on the concrete. We would
Sure.
basically- It's just a hand sprayer, just cheap soap and water. It helps
Just
cool
liquid
it and provide
detergent.
a layer of, basically, that takes the stickiness away. You still
Okay.
have to wait a little bit, but it'll cut down the amount of time that you can drive on it.
Okay,
It's like
that's a
lawn
good
switches.
suggestion.
Hot tip.
Okay.
All right, that's all you have? Trudy?
I had somebody call me today from a different ward about the cat situation. They said somebody in their neighborhood was putting out antifreeze to get rid of the cats.
Oh.
And then she also said that, and she's gonna bring them down here and give them to either Matt or somebody, that you can get grants to help take care of those cats, neutered and stuff like that. And even customers, she said she'd be willing to drive them to the vet in Waterville if need be, to where the police department didn't have to.
Oh.
And she could get a grant to do that too.
Okay,
Yeah, so she'll bring information.
that'd be good.
Awesome.
Yeah, and for the record, you're not allowed to put out antifreeze
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
intent of
Can't
poisoning
poison animals,
anything.
it's illegal.
Yeah, oh, I know, but yeah, that's what she said, there was antifreeze around their neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Colleen? Jeff? Kevin?
Yeah, who takes care of the weeds at the airport?
We do.
Or we need to go up and spray.
Like the cracks or the
All sorts of
rocks?
Purple thistles all over
Oh.
the place.
Oh, is it now tell me where,
In the fields,
If it's in the field, then it's whoever
It's
rents it.
rented out, yeah.
that's why I was asking. who
Oh,
owned it.
okay, so it's who
There's-
leases it, okay.
There's like a 50 by 75 spot up there that's just purple.
Check with them?
Okay,
Hmm.
okay,
Huh? It is.
okay. So I'll see if it's on the stuff that's ours or what they rent.
I'm sure it is. It's where they hay at.
Oh, okay, yeah, if it's the hay ground, then I know, okay, then I know who to call. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I know where it's at, so yeah.
Anything
Okay,
else?
That's all I have, sir.
Chris?
I'm just gonna bring this up because I doubt it ever will be, and I've gotten a lot of calls about our new city administrator, and they've all been good. All the departments have told me he's good.
Write that down.
No, he's out and about, he's always talking to people, so I just wanna give credit where credit is due. You're doing a good job, Josh, so.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Nothing to see.
Okay. I had a couple things. Last meeting, we discussed 11th Road being ready to go out for bids. Do we have an update on whether that's the case or not?
I've not heard anything. We thought it was close, but we can ask
Okay.
Rob.
I think we probably should push on that as part of the whole project.
Yep.
Last thing in the world we want is our engineering to get outdated or whatever.
Or easements.
Or easements to get outdated, yes. And the other thing is, if you want to hand these out, this is the proposed agreement from hopefully I counted that right.
Yep, I need.
Yeah, I remember.
Short you one?
Yeah, you did.
There we go. Nice. This is the proposed agreement from Rob Peschel and CES. Well, I just take one and hand the rest. How about that? With map and figures included.
Which I did not have until tonight.
And it was buried in my email. I will take full responsibility that I did not realize that I had received this and that everyone else had not received this. On page 4 is the crux of the costs involved to the proposed agreement. Other than that, I think it is pretty close to what we had looked at before as far as estimated costs.
That's the same.
Yeah, and on the map, yeah, this is the same values. So take a moment and read that if you'd like. I'm kind of dropping it on you in the middle of the meeting here.
At the end of the meeting.
Well, no, we're still the middle. Not the end until the.
Oh, I don't know, I think we ought to sit and think about this for a few weeks.
Sarcasm?
This is just engineering, right?
This is just the engineering.
Yes.
This is the.
But this is the step we need to move the process forward. As mentioned previously, this has been kind of on hold while we worked on our stormwater utility, putting that together. That process is ongoing. I still think that's an important process because this is the current fire to be, metaphorical, fire to be put out, but it won't be the last. There will be more problems like this that we will find on our aging system. I know of a couple other small problems right now, but we need to get this one solved sooner rather than later. It's not getting improved. It's an ongoing issue.
How many years left do we have with our sales tax?
Our sales tax has no set. It's not.
From
there's no
the
set.
levy? So are we leveraging that money the right way? Is there a possibility that maybe instead of doing everything on cash, that we should be looking at some lower interest loans and take advantage of that? What do we got, about 700,000 coming in a year off of the old levee project?
You'd have to look, I don't know that. off the top of my head.
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah. Right.
That would be the expectation with this project and with the road projects, if we were to look at those, is that they would not be out of our cash reserve right
Right.
now.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
They usually come out of sales tax, but.
I mean, road projects need to get tackled soon, but this, I think, is about as code red of a project as we have in front of us.
We did ask Daniel of what the Highway 77 project will cost. Probably somewhere between 500 and 600,000 that we have to come up with to finish 77 South, and that will be finished or bid totally out by September 18th, and that's already been approved through KDOT and whatever, so that cash we do have to come up with as well. And then I don't know what 11th Road will cost, and then we'd have to figure out this.
So what was the difference in the two amounts? Wasn't,
There, it was, that's a range, because we asked, it's a range, it's between those two numbers, is his guess.
And so,
$962,453.
you're getting a copy coming
or
your way.
1.255733?
And we just as well assume it's gonna be on the higher end of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'd love to be pleasantly surprised, but,
Hope for the best, but
yeah.
prepare for the worst.
Funding sources probably
So-
what we need to look at first.
And I
Tip
know at
note or
one point,
bond.
we weren't sure whether we were gonna go to 14th and go
You
down.
voted to take option 2, so
Okay.
this is, you are on option 2. This is why he waited to plan this till you guys voted.
Okay.
And I did find that in the minutes.
And I
It was
would,
at a special meeting, that's why I couldn't find it first.
I assume we're gonna have to take out some debt to fund this, and now, whether that's a short-term note or what the plan is there, I don't know. Josh, if you, from a budget perspective, have a preference for our angle of attack, moving forward on this, I mean, what do you think works best?
I mean, I'm just gonna look at all options and see from there, yeah.
First step is, if we want to proceed, the CES proposal.
So we have to approve the engineering.
And I don't,
Do we have the money for that? Silly question, I know.
It's a loaded question, right.
yeah, we'll find the money for that. That's the first step. But there's no two ways around it. We can't do the project without the engineering.
Shouldn't this be on our next meeting agenda though, as far as a business discussion? Or can we throw this into, I don't know if we can throw this into council comments.
Well, we can absolutely do, we can do whatever we want.
Well, yeah.
Fun fact.
Give us
But
time to research.
if
and
you
look at
want
it.
to research it, we can. I would say the sooner we move on this, the sooner the process moves forward. Because I think we are still gonna have these flood incidents, these heavy rainfalls, probably.
They never did fix the grate popping up issue, right?
No, it's popped up. I went and kicked it the other
I'd say
day.
it wasn't
Okay,
too bad this
we-
last rainstorm.
We did weld it down,
Then it
then
blew the
it caused
concrete
the
up.
sidewalk to blow up.
Right, yeah. I remember.
And so I don't know whether we want to remove the sidewalk, or so now we're back to the grate blowing up.
No, yeah, no, I know, they had talked about welding chains or something to it after they.
So it would come up but not escape.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't think we got that far.
No, there's no chain on it. At least there wasn't the other day.
I was
I
gonna
went and looked.
say it, we need to get moving on that.
It's council's decision. We can move forward with approving this, or we can chew on it a while. I don't know that it's gonna change a lot. We can bring this back as part of a holistic funding proposal.
So I'm looking, so we're gonna end up paying $180,000 in engineering?
Well, that's under what he guessed.
I mean, we can also get other engineering proposals if we'd like. I mean, Rob does know the project.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I think we've held off long enough on this, if you want my opinion. I know we need to be fiscally responsible, but I think the emergent problem with this is, so far, I mean, we have what we need, he knows the project, you know, it's been cambered and researched and drawn, and I mean, I think it's time that we move. I mean, what do we gotta do, just make a motion to approve the engineering?
Did you suggest maybe rolling this into like a comprehensive funding?
Yeah, that would be the thing, is if we came back at the next meeting with a proposed mechanism to fund this entire project.
Oh, we can still add in with this?
And you can add it later, so we could do that later as well.
we could make it part of that funding, the whole
yeah,
thing.
I'm okay
I mean,
with that.
we'll have to figure out where to take, he won't charge us the first day $200,000, is what I'm saying.
Mr.
so.
Havercamp, what do you suggest? Is it easier to? is it
I just
easier
asked
to-
him, he said, I gotta figure out where I'm gonna find the money.
Well, yeah, no, but what I'm saying, as far as a funding mechanism for this, how, is it easier to have it all encompassed into one potential, or is it?
Are you talking about just this
No, the
project, or are you
engineering
talking about engineering and everything, or are you talking about multiple projects?
Well, how are we looking at it? Are we looking at it as the engineering lumped together with everything, as far as the funding for?
That's how I would look at
That's
it.
how you, that's.
Yeah,
that's how-
that's just
That's what I
one.
was speaking.
Yeah.
And I should have
Okay.
clarified. So yeah, I mean, if we can find a funding for everything, is it easier to look for one total as opposed to lumping it in later on?
Yeah, I would be looking
You would look at it all.
for that 1.3,
And
basically.
in one meeting, you could potentially have some more info on.
I could get more info, I could not,
You don't, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't guarantee
Yeah.
rates, any, yeah,
There's no guarantee.
understood. But you'd have a little bit better of an idea of
Yeah,
what we'd be
yeah.
looking
But maybe by next meeting, if you haven't found a funding mechanism for everything, maybe we can approve the engineering then, and then at least get something going. I don't think we can hold, keep.
Well,
meeting
yeah,
meeting.
I don't foresee a situation where we don't move forward with
Yeah,
engineering.
That's my point. is, hey,
I think you can approve the,
Yeah.
Engineering.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So we
I
can
don't
move
think
forward with
that
this.
needs to
Now,
wait.
okay.
I move to approve the funding for the engineering to be done to get this,
And
stormwater sewer issue.
Basically, the engineering's done, right? They just need to go out for bids? No?
This is preliminary.
Yeah, they only did the prelim, so they've
Okay.
got,
So they'll
That's
be
what
up
I
there
thought.
flagging.
That's why
it.
there's
gonna
the
be a
Okay.
wash.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to move forward with the engineering proposal from CES Group. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And when you let Rob know, please find out about that 11th Road.
Sounds good.
Okay? I believe that is all I had.
Mr. Mayor, when you're done, I just have one.
Sure, go ahead.
The dock, has it been fixed yet?
not to my knowledge.
I see
Dom
people,
thought
I
he
see
did.
people using it, and I know, I only tied it on with mule tape, so I don't wanna see someone
We can
float
check.
out onto the.
We'll double check.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else that needs to come before the council?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Last minute stuff like this, so.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?